We are here on day one of Star Wars Episode 7.
Yeah.
How incredible is that?
The goal for J.J. Abrams and Kathleen Kennedy was to create something exceptional, something assured and spectacular, perhaps an approachable and deftly crafted sequel with one eye on the past. The story can be summed up as a dreamer Rey waits for the chance to reach for the stars in a desolated world, a villain, Kylo Ren, with a black helmet and a cape who has succumbed to the dark side. A misplaced droid beeps and chirps to alert the rebellion that its message is urgent. A student revolted against his teacher, a son turned on his father. It is entirely intended for these elements to evoke George Lucas's original Star Wars trilogy. J.J. Abrams' highly anticipated The Force Awakens is, in many ways, a remix, a loving mashup of well-known sequences, characters, ideas, and dialogue. Full disclosure before we go any further, I wasn't a Star Wars kid, and I don't have ingrained nostalgia for these movies, so I can look at the new trilogy of Star Wars films through an unbiased, unadulterated view. Growing up in the 1990s, our family TV rarely had Star Wars on it. In fact, I don't have memories of watching the original trilogy. I clearly saw them at some point, but they didn't leave an everlasting impression. My first memory of Star Wars was seeing The Phantom Menace at the cinema. Lucky me. What I do remember is watching RoboCop, Terminator 2 Judgment Day, Rambo, Time Cop, all on VHS, and my favourite horror film of all time, Wes Craven's A Nightmare on Elm Street, when I was 9 years old. And look at me now, I'm doing just fine, sort of. Anyway, when Disney acquired Lucasfilm on October 30th, 2012 for $4 billion, I wasn't concerned with the direction the mouse would take the movie franchise. I just wanted to see a good movie. And because I've backed myself into a corner already where movies are either a masterpiece or a disaster piece, I'm sticking with it. And with that, let's take a look and see, is Star Wars The Force Awakens a masterpiece? The film reunites original cast members Mark Hamill, Carrie Fisher and Harrison Ford in their iconic roles, in both real time and the film's timeline. More than 30 years have passed since The Return of the Jedi. Despite the fact that neither Fisher nor Hamill are given much to do, Ford demonstrates that he is just as vivacious and endearing at 73 as he was at half that age. This time, the veterans are orbited by a new generational group that includes Rey, a scrappy scavenger on the desolate planet Jakku, Finn, a sensitive former Star Trooper, Poe, a hotshot rebel fighter who is vastly underutilized, and Kylo Ren, a masked dark side follower. Adam Driver as Kylo Ren in particular gives an outstanding performance. He is excellent and terrifying here. The warning is clear: if no one stands up to Kylo and his enigmatic employer, the universe will explode. The rest of the acting for the most part is generally excellent, and the chemistry is fantastic. Dono Gleeson overreacts as a First Order general, but what good is a bad guy in a movie if he isn't insane? One of Abrams' more ingenious flourishes is to position their characters as interlocutors for a younger generation of fans or proto-fans. They've heard of the Force, Luke Skywalker and Han Solo, and they share the same curiosities as some of the millions of moviegoers who made their theatre visits on opening weekend. I particularly enjoy the opening of the movie with a big middle finger to the audience. Well, that's how I interpret it. You've waited 30 years for an original Star Wars movie? Think again. You'll get the same old recycled story and you'll love it. The opening of the movie, where the stormtroopers raid the village on the desert planet Jakku, sets the tone for the rest of the film by immediately immersing the audience in the Star Wars universe and introducing the new villain Kylo Ren. The scene is visually stunning, with the stormtroopers riding in on speeders and the village erupting into chaos. We're then introduced to Rey, played by Daisy Ridley. There's been much discussion about Daisy's acting ability when it comes to these movies. While there are definitely some ham-fisted moments in her acting, I think she does the best she can with what she has, and I can't say I ever feel taken out of the scene when she's in it. Rey's minding her own business on a desert planet. She's also tallying how long she's been there, but without the fifth line through the fourth, she's clearly given up on quickly accessing how long she's been there. I guess we need to address the Mary Sue in the room. To become the best at something, you must put in the time and effort, just like this YouTube channel. Even if you are exceptionally talented, there are no shortcuts to success. You must constantly learn new skills and put them into practice, and you will frequently require the assistance of a mentor. So let's clarify what a Mary Sue is. A fictitious figure who is so skilled or faultless that it appears absurd. The character type is not limited to females. The masculine equivalent is known as a Larry Stew. A Mary Sue is capable of tasks that are beyond her natural ability. So, does this description apply to Rey as being a Mary Sue? Yes and no. I know, I'm sitting on the fence here, but just hear me out. Let's start with yes. Rey is a Mary Sue. Sure, she's a scavenger and a skilled fighter when it comes to a long stick, but does that equate to instantly knowing how to repair anything, fly anything, fight anyone with a lightsaber? Of course she's meant to be a blank blank canvas that will be filled in throughout the movie and trilogy. However, these character traits are never really filled in. She just does them. For me, the biggest eye roll moment was when she was able to fix the Millennium Falcon better than Han after being on the ship all of one afternoon. And she also teaches herself the Jedi mind trick. Hey, look, Daniel Craig. All this would be fine, but we're never given a reason as to why. It's just because. However, the argument for Rey not being a Mary Sue is possibly stronger, and the part of the movie a lot of people point to at the epitome of a Mary Sue is the fight between her and Kylo. First off, the lightsaber duel between Rey and Kylo Ren in the snowy forest of the Starkiller base is a thrilling and an emotional moment that showcases the characters' development, abilities, and their conflicting loyalties. Choreography is well done, and the use of the snowy environment adds to the intensity of the scene. However, back to the point, Rey is not a Mary Sue in this fight. Keep in mind that Kylo took the full force of Chewie's bowcaster, which has been blasting villains from several meters away throughout the film. The movie makes a concerned effort to highlight its strengths. Furthermore, given that he recently murdered his father, Kylo is not in control of his thoughts in any way, shape or form. He's come to terms with the fact that he isn't feared enough. A simple stormtrooper couldn't have betrayed him otherwise. Traitor! Did I mention the guy just got hit in the torso with a bowcaster and is now actively pumping blood out of himself to fuel dark side rage? Guys, he's not doing so well.
I'm feeling woozy here!
He repeatedly beats his wound with his fist to increase the pain and rage, but the wound is too deep. Despite this, Rey spends the majority of the fight on the defensive, running away at every opportunity. On top of that, Kylo isn't out to kill Rey. Instead, he's supposed to bring her to Snork so he can turn her to the dark side. And if all that isn't enough to convince you, remember that Rey believes in the Force. That is more potent than any training. This is abundantly clear throughout the Star Wars film universe.
For my ally is the Force, and a powerful ally it is.
Close your eyes. Feel it. The light.
Don't underestimate the Force.
These quotes basically translate into, if you believe in the Force enough, the Force will protect you. And let's not forget,
The Force is with me, and I am with the Force.
I'm one with the Force is with me. I'm one with the Force, and the Force is with me.
this is the mantra chanted by the character Chirrut Imwe in Rogue One, which he repeats to focus himself and remain calm during an intense or difficult situation. Anyway, MVP of the movie for me is BB-8. He appears with a mission for Rey, and it's not surprising that a small ball can be transformed into such a distinctive character. After all, George Lucas invented the technique with R2-D2 back in 1977. Nevertheless, this does not distract from the pure gold that BB-8 consistently spins throughout the 2 hours of The Force Awakens. Whether he's strolling languidly across the sand, chatting with droid legends R2-D2 and C-3PO, or electrocuting a traitorous Finn, it's difficult for BB-8 not to steal the show. He even gets his own required action shot when he launches grappling wires to steady himself in the tipping over of the Millennium Falcon. The scene in which BB-8 is visibly divided between Rey and Finn, and having to choose to believe the former stormtrooper returns his thumbs up with a welding torch that mimics the digits he lacks is by far the highlight of BB-8's appearances. Kylo Ren for the most part is excellent, but his nervous breakdown on the dark side of the Force because he misplaced the droid and the secret plans it contained seemed a little OTT, and the big evil plan, another Death Star. Come on people, use your imagination. This cannot please die-hard fans, can it? To top it all off, it blows up a few planets mimicking the destruction of Alderaan. But what makes the destruction of Alderaan so memorable in the original Star Wars film is that it demonstrates how helpless Leia is, as she must witness the destruction of her home world with her own two eyes. Why would we care if Starkiller Base destroys some generic CGI worlds? But there are a few significant memorable scenes to be had. Long-time fans of the series will be ecstatic to have seen Han Solo and Chewbacca making a return, and the reunion of Han and Leia is also quite moving because it emphasises the depth and history of their relationships. The Star Destroyer escape sequence, which features Finn, Rey and BB-8, is a masterclass in suspense and action filmmaking. The audience is riveted to the seats from the moment the characters are discovered by the First Order and pursued around the ship before making a daring escape. And of course, the emotional and staring conclusion of the film, in which Rey discovers Luke Skywalker on a deserted island and hands him his lightsaber, which leaves the audience eagerly awaiting the next installment of the Star Wars series, even if in reality it was somewhat mishandled. The music and acting perfectly convey the sense of surprise and hope that has always been a major theme in the series, and the sequence is shot beautifully. After all this rambling, where does it leave us on the movie being a masterpiece? Star Wars The Force Awakens is served to us as a safe, satisfying, well cast, well acted and somewhat predictable entry point in a new film series. It achieved precisely what the prequels did not. They had more more complicated plot, they weren't necessarily executed with pinpoint accuracy, with a rushed script that left huge plot holes and ignored characters and performances. The Force Awakens fills out a thin but undeniably well-crafted plot with engaging characters and performances, as well as the crucial business of passing the torch between generations of Star Wars heroes and villains. The prequels had received such harsh criticism that The Force Awakens was almost expectedly to take a more conservative approach. It's a generational shift and of course correction. These were the only options. While the film works well in isolation, it falls short as a three-part trilogy. It looks fantastic, has some very successful new characters, pretty much nails the tone with just enough humour but no slapstick, oops I stepped on this button that accidentally won the battle moments. It has a fantastic lightsaber duel, hits some great emotional notes, and only has a few missteps. It lacks, however, the revolutionary feeling that a masterpiece should have. Well, that's enough rambling for one day.